Okay, today's reading from Plato's Complete Works is from Phaedrus. Okay, we're in Phaedrus. Okay. We'll begin from the very beginning of the dialogue. Phaedrus. Socrates. Okay, it's Socrates, right? Phaedrus, my friend, where have you been and where are you going? Phaedrus says, I was with Lysias, the son of Cephalus. Socrates and I am going for a walk outside the city walls because I was with him for a long time, sitting there the whole morning. You see, I'm keeping in mind the advice of our mutual Acumenus, who says it's more refreshing to walk along country roads than city streets. He is quite right too, my friend. So Lysias, I take it, is in the city? Yes, at the house of Epicratus, which used to belong to Mauricus near the temple of the Olympian Zeus. What were you doing there? Oh, I know. Lysias must have been entertaining you with a feast of eloquence. Phaedrus, you'll hear about it if you're free to come along and listen. What? Don't you think I would consider it more important than the most pressing engagement, as Pindar says, to hear how you and Lysias spent your time? Lead the way, then. If only you will tell me. In fact, Socrates, you're just the right person to hear the speech that occupied us, since, in a roundabout way, it was about love. It is aimed at seducing a beautiful boy, but the speaker is not in love with him. This is actually what is so clever and elegant about it. Lysias argues that it is better to give your favors to someone who does not love you than to someone who does. What a wonderful man! I wish you would write that you should give your favors to a poor rather than to a rich man, to an older rather than to a younger one. This is to someone like me and most other people. Then his speeches would be really sophisticated, and they'd contribute to the public good besides. In any case, I'm so eager to hear it that I would follow you, even if you were walking all the way to Megara, as Herodotus recommends, to touch the wall and come back again. And in the footnote here it says Herodotus was a medical expert whose regimen Socrates criticizes in Republic, lines 406a to b. What on earth do you mean, Socrates? Do you think that a mere dilettante like me could recite from memory in a manner worthy of him a speech that Lysias, the best of our writers, took such time and trouble to compose? Far from it, though actually I would rather be able to do that than come into a large fortune. Oh, Phaedrus, if I don't know my Phaedrus, I must be forgetting who I am myself, and neither is the case. I know very well that he did not hear Lysias' speech not once. He asked him to repeat it over and over again, and Lysias was eager to oblige. But not even that was enough for him. In the end, he took the book himself and pored over the parts he liked best. He sat reading all morning long, and when he got tired, he went for a walk, having learned, I am quite sure, the whole speech by heart, unless it was extraordinarily long. So he started for the country, where he could practice reciting it, and running into a man who is sick with passion for hearing speeches. Just seeing him, he was filled with delight. He had found a partner for his frenzied dance, and he urged him to lead the way. But when that lover of speeches asked him to recite it, he played coy and pretended that he did not want to. In the end, of course, he was going to recite it, even if he had to force an unwilling audience to listen. So please, Phaedrus, beg him to do it right now. He'll do it soon enough anyway. Phaedrus, well, I'd better try to recite it as best as I can. You'll obviously not leave me in peace until I do so one way or another. You're absolutely right. That's what I'll do then. But, Socrates, it really is true that I did not memorize the speech word for word. Instead, I'll give a careful summary of its general sense, listing all the ways he said the lover differs from the non-lover in the proper order. Only if you first show me what you are holding in your left hand under your cloak, my friend. I strongly suggest you have the speech itself, and if I'm right, you can be sure that, though I love you dearly, I'll never, as long as Lysias himself is present, allow you to practice your own speech making on me. Come on then, show me. Enough, enough. You've dashed my hopes of using you as my training partner, Socrates. All right, where do you want to sit while we read? Let's leave the path here and walk along the Ilissus. Then we can sit quietly wherever we find the right spot. How lucky then that I am barefoot today. You, of course, are always so. The easiest thing to do is to walk right in the stream. This way, we'll also get our feet wet, which is very pleasant, especially at this hour and season. Lead the way then, and find us a place to sit. Do you see that very tall plane tree? Of course. It's shady with a light breeze. We can sit, or if we prefer, lie down on the grass there. Lead on then. Tell me, Socrates, isn't it from somewhere near the stretch of the Ilissus that people say Boreas carried Orithua away? So they say. Couldn't this be the very spot? The stream is lovely, pure and clear, just right for girls to be playing nearby. No, it is 200 or 300 yards further downstream, where one crosses to get to the district of Agra. I think there is even an altar to Boreas there. I hadn't noticed it, but tell me, Socrates, in the name of Zeus, do you really believe that the legend is true? Actually, it would not be out of place for me to reject it, as our intellectuals do. I could then tell a clever story. I could claim that a gust of the north wind blew her over the rocks where she was playing with Pharmacia, and once she was killed that way, people said she had been carried off by Boreas, or was it perhaps from the Areopagus? The story is also told that she was carried away from there instead. Now, Phaedrus, such explanations are amusing enough, but they are a job for a man I cannot envy at all. He'd have to be far too ingenious and work too hard, mainly because after that he will have to go on and give a rational account of the form of the hippocentaurs, and then of the chimera, and a whole flood of gorgons and pegasuses and other monsters in large numbers and absurd forms will overwhelm him. Anyone who does not believe in them, who wants to explain them away and make them plausible by means of some sort of rough ingenuity, will need a great deal of time. But I have no time for such things, and the reason, my friend, is this. I'm still unable, as the Delphic inscription orders, to know myself, and it really seems to me ridiculous to look into other things before I have understood that. This is why I do not concern myself with them. I accept what is generally believed, and as I was just saying, I look not into them, but into my own self. Am I a beast more complicated and savage than Typhon? Or am I a tamer, simpler animal with a share in a divine and gentle nature? But look, my friend, while we were talking, haven't we reached the tree you are taking us to? That's the one. By Hera, it really is a beautiful resting place. The plane tree is tall and very broad. The chaste tree, high as it is wonderfully shady, and since it is in full bloom, the whole place is filled with its fragrance. From under the plane tree, the loveliest spring runs with very cool water. Our feet can testify to that. The place appears to be dedicated to Achelous and some of the nymphs, if you can judge from the statues and votive offerings. Feel the freshness of the air, how pretty and pleasant it is, how it echoes with the summery, sweet song of the cicadas' chorus. The most exquisite thing of all, of course, is the grassy slope. It rises so gently that you can rest your head perfectly when you lie down on it. You've really been the most marvelous guide, my dear Phaedrus. And you, my remarkable friend, appear to be totally out of place. Really, just as you say, you seem to need a guide, not to be one of the locals. Not only do you need travel abroad, as far as I can tell. You never even set foot beyond the city walls. Forgive me, my friend. I am devoted to learning. Landscapes and trees have nothing to teach me. Only the people in the city can do that. But you, I think, have found a potion to charm me into leaving. For just as people lead hungry animals forward by shaking branches of fruit before them, you can lead me all over Attica or anywhere else you like, simply by waving in front of me the leaves of a book containing a speech. But now, having gotten as far as this place this time around, I intend to lie down. So choose whatever position you think will be most comfortable for you and read on. Listen then. You understand my situation. I've told you how good it would be for us, in my opinion, if this worked out. In any case, I don't think I should lose the chance to get what I'm asking for, merely because I don't happen to be in love with you. A man in love will wish he had not done you any favors once his desire dies down, but the time will never come for a man who is not in love to change his mind. That is because the favors he does for you are not forced but voluntary, and he does the best that he possibly can for you, just as he would for his own business. Besides, a lover keeps his eye on the balance sheet, where his interests have suffered from love, and where he has done well, and when he adds up all the trouble he has taken, he thinks he's long since given the boy he loves he loved a fair return. A non-lover, on the other hand, can't complain about love's making him neglect his own business. He can't keep a tab on the trouble he's been through, or blame you for the quarrels he's had with his relatives. Take away all those headaches, and there's nothing left for him to do but put his heart into whatever he thinks will give pleasure. Besides, suppose a lover does deserve to be honored because, as they say, he is the best friend his loved one will ever have, and he stands ready to please his boy with all those words and deeds that are so annoying to everyone else. It's easy to see, if he's telling the truth, that the next time he falls in love, he'll care more for his new love than for the old one, and it's clear he'll treat the old one shabbily whenever that'll please the new one. And anyway, what sense does it make to throw away something like that on a person who has fallen into such a miserable condition that those who have suffered it don't even try to defend themselves against it? A lover will admit that he is more sick than sound in the head. He's well aware that he is not thinking straight. But he'll say he can't get himself under control. So when he does start thinking straight, why would he stand by decisions he had made when he was sick? Another point, if you were to choose the best of those who are in love with you, you'd have a pretty small group to pick from. But you'll have a large group if you don't care whether he loves you or not, and just pick the one who suits you best. And in that larger pool, you'll have a much better hope of finding someone who deserves your friendship. Now, suppose you're afraid of conventional standards and stigma that'll come to you if people find out about this. Well, it stands to reason that a lover, thinking that everyone else who admires him for his success as much as he admires himself, will fly into words and proudly declare to all and sundry that his labors were not in vain. Someone who does not love you, on the other hand, can control himself and will choose to do what is best rather than seek the glory that comes from popular reputation. Besides, it is inevitable that a lover will be found out. Many people will see that he devotes his life to following the boy he loves. The result is that whenever people see you talking with him, they'll think you are spending time together just before or just after giving way to desire. But they won't even begin to find fault with people for spending time together if they are not lovers. They know one has to talk to someone, either out of friendship or to obtain some other pleasure. Another point, have you been alarmed by the thought that it is hard for friendships to last? Or that when people break up, it's ordinarily just as awful for one side as it is for the other? But when you've given up what is most important to you already, then your loss is greater than his? If so, it would make more sense for you to be afraid of lovers. For a lover is easily annoyed, and whatever happens, he'll think it was designed to hurt him. That is why a lover prevents the boy he loves from spending time with other people. He's afraid that wealthy men will outshine him with their money, while men of education will turn out to have the advantage of greater intelligence. And he watches like a hawk everyone who may have any other advantage over him. Once he's persuaded you to turn those people away, he'll have you completely isolated from friends and if you show more sense than he does in looking after your interests, you'll come to quarrel with him. But if a man really does not love you, if it is only because of his excellence that he got what he asked for, then he won't be jealous of the people who spend time with you. Quite the contrary. He'll hate anyone who does not want to be with you. He'll think they look down on him, while those who spend time with you do him good. As you should expect friendship rather than enmity to result from this affair. Another point, lovers generally start to desire your body before they know your character or have any experience of your other traits, with the result that even they can't tell whether they'll still want to be friends with you after their desire has passed. Non lovers, on the other hand, are friends with you even before they achieve their goal, and you've no reason to expect that benefits received will ever detract from their friendship for you. No, those things will stand as reminders of more to come. Another point, you can expect to become a better person if you are won over by me rather than by a lover. A lover will praise what you say and what you do far beyond what is best, partly because he is afraid of being disliked, and partly because desire has impaired his judgment. Here is how love draws conclusions. When a lover suffers a reverse that would cause no pain to anyone else, makes him think he's accursed. And when he has a stroke of luck that's not worth a moment's pleasure, love compels him to sing its praises. The result is you should feel sorry for lovers, not admire them. If my argument wins you over, I will first of all give you my time with no thought of immediate pleasure. I will plan instead for the benefits that are to come, since I am master of myself and I have not been overwhelmed by love. Small problems will not make me very hostile, and big ones will make me only gradually and only a little angry. I will forgive you for unintentional errors and do my best to keep you from going wrong intentionally. All this, you see, is the proof of a friendship that will last a long time. Have you been thinking that there can be no strong friendship in the absence of erotic love? Then you ought to remember that we would not care so much about our children if that were so, or about our fathers and mothers, and we wouldn't have had any trustworthy friends, since those relationships did not come from such a desire but from doing quite different things. Besides, if it were true that we ought to give the biggest favor to those who need it most, then we should all be helping out the very poorest people, not the best ones, because the people we've saved from the worst troubles will give us the most thanks. For instance, the right people to invite to a dinner party would be beggars and people who need to sate their hunger, because they're the ones who will be fond of us, follow us, knock on our doors, take the most pleasure with the deepest gratitude, and pray for our success. No, it's proper, I suppose, to grant your favors to those who are best able to return them, not to those in the direst need. That is, not to those who merely desire the thing, but to those who really deserve it, not to people who will take pleasure in the bloom of your youth, but to those who will share their goods with you when you are older, not to people who achieve their goal and then boast about it in public, but to those who will keep a modest silence with everyone, not to people whose devotion is short lived, but to those who will be steady friends their whole lives, not to people who look for an excuse to quarrel as soon as their desires has passed, but to those who will prove their worth when the bloom of your youth has faded. Now, remember what I said and keep this in mind. Friends often criticize a lover for bad behavior, but no one close to a non lover ever thinks that desire has led him into bad judgment about his interests. Okay. And now I suppose you'll ask me whether I'm urging you to give your favors to everyone who is not in love with you. No, as I see it, a lover would not ask you to give in to all your lovers either. You would not, in that case, earn as much gratitude from each recipient, and you would not be able to keep one affair secret from the others in the same way. But this sort of thing is not supposed to cause any harm and really should work for the benefit of both sides. Well, I think this speech is long enough. If you're still longing for more, if you think I've passed over something, just ask. How does the speech strike you, Socrates? Don't you think it's simply superb, especially in its choice of words? Wow. Okay, so now Socrates starts rebutting. It's a miracle, my friend,
I'm in ecstasy, and it's all you're doing, Phaedrus. I was looking at you while you were reading, and it seemed to me that the speech had made you radiant with delight, and since I believe you understand these matters better than I do, I followed your lead, and following you, I shared your Bacchic frenzy. Wow. Come, Socrates, do you think you should joke about this? Do you really think I'm joking? That I'm not serious? You're not at all serious, Socrates. But now tell me the truth. In the name of Zeus, god of friendship, do you think that any other Greek could say anything more impressive or more complete on the same subject? What? Must we praise the speech even on the ground that its author has said what the situation demanded, and not instead simply on the ground that he has spoken in a clear and concise manner with a precise turn of phrase? If we must, I will have to go along for your sake, since surely because I am so ignorant that passed me by, I paid attention only to the speech's style, and as to the other part, I wouldn't even think that Lysias himself could be satisfied with it. For it seemed to me, Phaedrus, unless of course you disagree, that he said the same things to her even 3 times, as if he really didn't have much to say about the subject, almost as if he just weren't very interested in it. In fact, he seemed to me to be showing off, trying to demonstrate that he could say the same thing in 2 different ways and say it just as well both times. Phaedrus, you're absolutely wrong, Socrates. That is, in fact, the best thing about the speech. He has omitted nothing worth mentioning about the subject, so that no one will ever be able to add anything of value to complete what he has already said himself. You go too far. I can't agree with you about that. If, as a favor to you, I accept your view, I will stand refuted by all the wise men and women of old who have spoken or written about this subject. Who are these people? And where have you heard anything better than this? I can't tell you offhand, but I'm sure I've heard better somewhere. Perhaps it was his lovely Sappho, or the wise Anacreon, or even some writer of prose. So, what's my evidence? The fact, my dear friend, that my breast is full and I feel I can make a different speech, even better than Lysias. Now I'm well aware that none of these ideas can have come from me. I know my own ignorance. The only other possibility, I think, is that I was filled like an empty jar by the words of other people streaming in through my ears, though I'm so stupid that I've even forgotten where and from whom I heard them. But my dear friend, you couldn't even have said a better thing. Don't bother telling me when and from whom you've heard this. And even if I ask you instead, do exactly what you said. You've just promised to make another speech making more points and better ones without repeating a word from my book. And I promise you that even like the 9 archons, I shall set up return return a life-sized golden statue at Delphi, not only of myself but also of you. You're a real friend, Phaedrus. Good as gold. To think I'm claiming that Lysias failed in absolutely every respect and that I can make a speech that is different on every point from his. I'm sure that that couldn't happen even to the worst possible author. In our own case, for example, do you think that anyone could argue that one should favor the non lover rather than the lover without praising the former for keeping his wits about him, or condemning the latter for losing his points that are essential to make and still have something left to say? I believe we must allow these points and concede them to the speaker. In their case, we cannot praise their novelty, but only their skillful arrangement. But we can praise both the arrangement and the novelty of the non essential points that are harder to think up. I agree with you. I think that's reasonable. This then is what I shall do. I will allow you to presuppose that the lover is less sane than the non lover, and if you're able to add anything of value to complete what we already have in mind, you will stand in hammered gold beside the offering of the um, Sepsilids. Sepsilid? Is that how one says it? Cypselids. Seplicid, Sepsilids, and Olympia. Oh, Phaedrus, I was only criticizing your beloved in order to tease you. Did you take me seriously? Do you think I really I'd really try to match the product of his wisdom with a fancier speech? Well, as far as that goes, my friend, you've fallen into your own trap. You have no choice but to give your speech as best as you can. Otherwise, you'll force us into trading vulgar jibes the way they do in comedy. Don't make me say what you said, Socrates. What you said. Socrates, if I don't know my Socrates, I must be forgetting who I am myself. Or he wanted to speak, but he was being coy. Get into your head that we shall not leave here until you recite what you claim to have in your breast. We are alone in a deserted place, and I am younger and stronger. From all this, take my meaning, and don't make me force you to speak when you can do so willingly. But, my dear Phaedrus, I'll be ridiculous, a mere dilettante, improvising on the same topics as a seasoned professional. Do you understand the situation? Stop playing hard to get. I know what I can say to make you give your speech. Then please don't say it. Oh, yes, I will. And what I say will be on oath, I swear to you, by which god I wonder. How about this very plain tree? I swear in all truth that if you don't make your speech right next to this tree here, I shall never again recite another speech for you. I shall never utter another word about speeches to you. My oh my, what a horrible man you are. You've really found a way to force a lover of speeches to do just as you say. So why are you still twisting and turning like that? I'll stop now that you've taken this oath. How could I possibly give up such treats? Speak then. Do you know what I'll do? What? I'll cover my head while I'm speaking. In that way, as I'm going through the speech as fast as I can, I won't get embarrassed by having to look at you and lose the thread of my argument. Just give your speech. You can do anything else you like. Come to me, O you clear voiced muses, whether you are called so because of the quality of your song or from the musical people of Liguria. Okay, what does the footnote say? Footnote says Socrates here suggests a far fetched etymology for a common epithet of the Muses as the clear voiced ones on the basis of its resemblance to the Greek name for the Ligurians who lived in what is now known as the French Riviera. Okay. Come take up my burden in telling the tale that this fine fellow forces upon me, so that his companion may now seem to him even more clever than he did before. Wait. Right. There once was a boy, a youth rather, and he was very beautiful and had very many lovers. One of them was Willie and had persuaded him that he was not in love, though he loved the lads no less than the others. And once in pressing his suit to him, he tried to persuade him that he ought to give his favors to a man who did not love him rather than to one who did. And this is what he said. If you wish to reach a good decision on any topic, my boy, there is only one way to begin. You must know what the decision is about, or else you are bound to miss your target altogether. Ordinary people cannot see that they do not know the true nature of a particular subject. So they proceed as if they did, and because they do not work out an agreement at the start of the inquiry, they wind up as you would expect, in conflict with themselves and each other. Now, you and I had better not let this happen to us, since we criticize it in others, and because you and I are about to discuss whether a boy should make friends with a man who loves him rather than with one who does not. We should agree on defining what love is and what effects it has. Then we can look back and refer to that as we try to find out whether to expect benefit or harm from love. Now, as everyone plainly knows, love is some kind of desire, but we also know that even men who are not in love have a desire for what is beautiful. So, how shall we distinguish between a man who is in love and one who is not? We must realize that each of us is ruled by two principles which we follow wherever they lead. One is our inborn desire for pleasures, the other is our acquired judgment that pursues what is best. Sometimes these two are in agreement, but there are times when they quarrel inside us, and then sometimes one of them gains control, sometimes the other. Now, when judgment is in control and leads us by reasoning toward what is best, that sort of self-control is called being in your right mind. But when desire takes command in us and drags us without reasoning toward pleasure, then its command is known as outrageousness. Now, outrageousness has many names as the forms it can take, and these are quite diverse. Whichever form stands out in a particular case gives its name to the person who has it, and that is not a pretty name to be called, not worth earning at all. If it is desire for food that overpowers a person's reasoning about what is best and suppresses his other desires, it is called gluttony, and it gives them the name of a glutton. While if it is desire for drink that plays the tyrant and leads the man in that direction, we all know what name we'd call him then. And now it should be clear how to describe someone appropriately in the other cases. Call the man by that name, sister to these others, that derives from the sister of these desires that controls him at the time. As for the desire that has led us to say all this, it should be obvious already, but I suppose things said are always better understood than things unsaid. The unreasoning desire that overpowers a person's considered impulse to do right and his desire to take pleasure in beauty, its force reinforced by its kindred desires for beauty in human bodies. This desire, all conquering in its forceful drive, takes its name from the word for force, Rome, and is called eros. There, Phaedrus, my friend, don't you think as I do that I'm in the grip of something divine? I mean, I could say a lot about what just happened in this part of the dialogue, but um, there's something about the dialogue itself, Phaedrus, that provides you with a sort of religious experience itself. Um, it's less about even understanding what Socrates has to say in terms of what is divine, but you could speak from your own case uh, that what you've experienced in following this thread is divine enough already. Um, I mean, Phaed- Phaedrus gives a speech and then asks Socrates what he thinks of it. He thinks he's really done the best that anybody ever could do on the topic of love. And then Socrates is like, "Oh wow, your style was so good that I wasn't even thinking about anything else." And then Phaedrus is like, "Are you kidding me, man? Are you joking with me?" Like, and Socrates is like, "No, I'm serious. Your delivery was superb," and then rebuts in this way uh, that introduces the uh, idea of desire as eros. Um, and then he says that what his response, his rebuttal, is sort of coming into contact with something that's divine. Which whenever I read that, I get a sort of confirmation that what I've experienced is divine in reading this dialogue. But I'll continue. Phaedrus says, "This is certainly an unusual flow of words for you, Socrates." Socrates says, "Then be quiet and listen. There's something really divine about this place, so don't be surprised if I'm taken by the nymph's madness as I go on with the speech. I'm on the edge of speaking in dith, dith, dithyrambics as it is." Wait, what is dithyrambics? The footnote says a dithyramb was a choral poem originally connected with the worship of Dionysus. In classical times, it became associated with an artificial style dominated by music. Wow, totally did not know that. Phaedrus says, "Very true." Socrates, "Yes, and you're the cause of it. But hear me out. The attack may yet be prevented. That, however, is up to the god. But we must do what we must do is face the boy again in the speech. Just a quick comment there. The way that Socrates says what we must do is face the boy again in the speech makes me think that there is a kind of reality about the speech itself, right? Socrates doesn't say that what we must do is face the boy again, period. He says we must face the boy in the speech. There is a kind of metaphysical reality to the speech itself. After all, Phaedrus is about love, right? But it's also about speech and writing and logos. I've looked into the Greek for this at times, but and the reason why that's important is because it's a good idea to keep track of particular words that Socrates uses. So when he says speech, it's logos in Greek, and there are different ways of saying speech, but logos has a particular connotation to it. Yeah, there's a rhyme and reason. So continuing, Socrates says, "All right then, my brave friend, now we have a definition for the subject of our decision. Now we have set what it really is. So let us keep that in view as we complete our discussion. What benefit or harm is likely to come from the lover or the non-lover to the boy who gives him favors? It is surely necessary that a man who is ruled by desire and is a slave to pleasure will turn his boy into whatever is most pleasing to himself. Now, a sick man takes pleasure in anything that does not resist him, but sees anyone who is equal or superior to him as an enemy. That is why a lover will not willingly put up with a boyfriend who is his equal or superior, but is always working to make the boy he loves weaker and inferior to himself. Now, the ignorant man is inferior to the wise one, the coward to the brave, the ineffective speaker to the trained orator, the slow-witted to the quick. By necessity, a lover will be delighted to find all these mental defects and more, whether acquired or innate, in his boy, and if he does not, he will have to supply them or else lose the pleasure of the moment." Right? I'll read that again now. This is an interesting situation here. Now, the ignorant man is inferior to the wise one, the coward to the brave, the ineffective speaker to the trained orator, the slow-witted to the quick. By necessity, a lover will be delighted to find all these mental defects and more, whether acquired or innate, in his boy. And if he does not, he will have to supply them or else lose the pleasure of the moment. The necessary consequence is that he will be jealous and keep the boy away from the good company of anyone who would make a better man of him. And that will cause him a great deal of harm, especially if he keeps him away from what would most improve his mind. And that is, in fact, divine philosophy, from which it is necessary for a lover to keep his boy a great distance away, out of fear the boy will eventually come to look down on him. He will have to invent other ways too for keeping the boy in total ignorance and so in total dependence on himself. That way the boy will give his lover the most pleasure, though the harm to himself will be severe. So it will not be of any use to your intellectual development to have as your mentor and companion a man who is in love. I think that reasoning tracks. That sounds reasonable to me. Continuing. Now let's turn to your physical development. If a man is bound by necessity to chase pleasure at the expense of the good, what sort of shape will he want you to be in? How will he train you if he is in charge? You will see that what he wants is someone who is soft, not muscular, and not trained in full sunlight. but in dappled shade, someone who has never worked out like a man, never touched hard, sweaty exercise. Instead, he goes for a boy who has known only a soft, unmanly style of life, who makes himself pretty with cosmetics because he has no natural color at all. There is no point in going on with this description. It is perfectly obvious what other sorts of behavior follow from this. Right, it's like this kind of degeneracy is obvious, and you should be able to see all the other ways that decadence happens. Um, we can take up our next topic after drawing all this to a head. The sort of body a lover wants in his boy is one that will give confidence to the enemy in a war or other great crisis while causing alarm to friends and even to his lovers. Enough of that. The point is obvious. Our next topic is the benefit or harm to your possessions that will come from a lover's care and company. Everyone knows the answer, especially a lover. His first wish will be for a boy who has lost his dearest, kindliest, and godliest possessions, his mother and father and other close relatives. He would be happy to see the boy deprived of them, since he would expect them either to block him from the sweet pleasure of the boy's company or to criticize him severely for taking it. What is more, a lover would think any money or other wealth the boy owns would only make absolute necessity that wealth in a boyfriend will cause his lover. Oh, sorry, I skipped a line there. I'll just start from the beginning of the sentence. What is more, a lover would think any money or other wealth the boy owns would only make him harder to snare, and once snared, harder to handle. It follows by absolute necessity that wealth in a boyfriend will cause his lover to envy him, while his poverty will be a delight. Furthermore, he will wish for the boy to stay wifeless, childless, and homeless for as long as possible, since that's how long he desires to go on plucking his sweet fruit. There are other troubles in life, of course, but some divinity has mixed most of them with a dash of immediate pleasure. A flatterer, for example, may be an awful beast and a dreadful nuisance, but nature makes flattery rather pleasant by mixing in a little culture with its words. So it is with a mistress, for all the harm we accuse her of causing, and with many other creatures of that character and their callings. At least they are delightful company for a day, but besides being harmful to his boyfriend, a lover is simply disgusting to spend the day with. Youth delights youth, as the old proverb runs. Because I suppose friendship grows from similarity, as boys of the same age go after the same pleasures, but you can even have too much of people in your own age. Besides, as they say, it is miserable for anyone to be forced into anything by necessity. And this, to say nothing of the age difference, is most true for a boy with his lover. The older man clings to the younger day and night, never willing to leave him, driven by necessity and goaded on by the sting that gives him pleasure every time he sees, hears, touches, or perceives his boy in any way at all, so that he follows him around like a servant with pleasure. As for the boy, however, what comfort or pleasure he will Okay, as for the boy, however, what comfort or pleasure will the lover give to him during all the time they spend together? Won't it be disgusting in the extreme to see the face of that older man who's lost his looks and everything that goes with that face? Why, it's a misery even to hear them mentioned, let alone actually handle them, as you would constantly be forced to do. To be watched and guarded suspiciously all the time with everyone, to hear praise of yourself that is out of place and excessive, and then to be falsely accused, which is unbearable when the man is sober, and not only unbearable but positively shameful when he is drunk and lays into you with a pack of wild, barefaced insults. While he is still in love, he is harmful and disgusting, but after his love fades, he breaks his trust with you for the future, in spite of all the promises he has made with all those oaths and entreaties which just barely kept you in a relationship that was troublesome at the time in hope of future benefits. So then, by the time he should pay up, he has made a change and installed a new ruling government in himself, right minded reason in place of the madness of love, The boy does not even realize that his lover is a different man. He insists on his reward for past favors and reminds them of what they have done and said before, as if he were still talking to the same man. The lover, however, is so ashamed that he does not dare tell the boy how much he has changed, or that there is no way, now that he is in his right mind and under control again, that he can stand by the promises he had sworn to uphold when he was under that old mindless regime. He is afraid that if he acted as he had before, he would turn out the same and revert to his old self. So now he is a refugee fleeing from those old promises on which he must default by necessary. He, the former lover, has to switch roles and flee, since the coin has fallen the other way, while the boy must chase after him, angry and cursing. All along he has been completely unaware that he should never have given his favors to a man who was in love, and who therefore had by necessity lost his mind. He should much rather have done it for a man who was not in love and had his wits about him. Otherwise, it follows necessarily that he'd be giving himself to a man who is deceitful, irritable, jealous, disgusting, harmful to his property, harmful to his physical fitness, and absolutely devastating to the cultivation of his soul, which truly is and will always be the most valuable thing to gods and men. These are the points you should bear in mind, my boy. You should know that the friendship of a lover arises without any goodwill at all. No, like food, its purpose is to sate hunger. Do wolves love lambs? That's how lovers befriend a boy. That's it, Phaedrus. You won't hear another word from me, and you'll have to accept this as the end of the speech. Phaedrus. But I thought you were right in the middle. I thought you were about to speak at the same length about the non-lover, to list his good points and argue that it's better to give one's favors to him. So why are you stopping now, Socrates? Didn't you notice, my friend, that even though I'm criticizing the lover, I have passed beyond lyric into epic poetry? What do you suppose will happen to me if I begin to praise the opposite? Don't you realize that the nymphs to whom you so cleverly exposed me will take complete possession of me? So I say instead, in a word, that every shortcoming for which we blame the lover has its contrary advantage, and the non-lover possesses it. Why make a long speech of it? That's enough about them both. This way my story will meet the end it deserves, and I will cross the river and leave before you make me do something even worse. Not yet, Socrates, not until this heat is over. Don't you see that it is almost exactly noon? Straight up, as they say? Let's wait and discuss the speeches and go as soon as it turns cooler. Socrates says, you're really superhuman when it comes to speeches. Phaedrus, you're truly amazing. I'm sure you've brought into being more of the speeches that have been given during your lifetime than anyone else, whether you compose them yourself or in one way or another force others to make them. With the single exception of Simmias the Theban, you are far ahead of the rest. Even as we speak, I think you're managing to cause me to produce yet another one. And we're going to take a break there for now and continue our Platonic reading tomorrow. But there you have it, folks. Plato.